Picture this. You walk into a party where you know nobody. Two things can happen. Either you feel invisible, awkward, like you're desperately searching for a place to belong, or you feel confident, calm, respected without saying much at all. The difference isn't your looks, your job, or even your personality. It's something deeper. It's your ability to read and respond to people. Most of us have felt both sides of this coin. The crushing loneliness of being misunderstood. The frustration of watching others connect effortlessly while we stand on the outside. The fear that we're somehow missing the manual everyone else seems to have. But what if I told you there is a manual? What if the secret to connection, influence, and respect isn't about becoming louder, funnier, or more charming? What if it's about mastering something far more subtle and powerful? This is the art of social intelligence. It's not about manipulation or playing games. It's about understanding the invisible language that governs every human interaction. It's about learning to see what others miss, feel what others ignore, and respond in ways that create trust, connection, and influence. Over the next 90 minutes, we'll journey through 15 chapters that will transform how you move through the world. You'll learn to observe like a master, listen like a healer, and respond like a leader. You'll discover how to build trust without saying much, set boundaries without guilt, and turn conflict into connection. By the end, you won't just communicate better. You'll connect at a level that makes you unforgettable. This isn't about becoming someone you're not. It's about becoming the fullest version of who you already are. Someone who understands the hidden language of human connection. Someone who reads between the lines and responds with quiet power. Someone people trust, respect, and remember long after the conversation ends. Chapter 1: The Silent Power of Observation. Before you speak, before you respond, before you even walk into a room, your power begins with what you see. Not just with your eyes, but with your attention. We live in a world full of noise. People are speaking faster, scrolling faster, reacting faster. But the people who win in life, who connect deeply and lead with impact, are not the loudest. They are the most observant. This is about learning to see what others miss. It's about becoming the kind of person who can walk into a room and feel what's happening before a single word is spoken. If you can do that, you become powerful. Quietly, steadily powerful. Most people don't observe. They assume. They jump to conclusions. They look, but they don't see. When you fail to observe, you miss the real game people play. You see the smile, but not the tension in the jaw. You hear, "I'm fine," but don't catch the pause before it. You notice the words, but not the energy behind them. Social intelligence starts the moment you slow down and pay attention. Not just to people's words, but their patterns. How they sit, where their eyes move, what makes them light up, what makes them go quiet. If someone enters a room and looks at the floor, that tells you something. If they keep adjusting their watch or their hair, that tells you something too. But you can't notice these things if you're busy thinking about what you'll say next. To truly understand people, you must take your attention off yourself. Observation is like a muscle. If you train it, it grows. You'll start to notice that people don't always say what they mean, but their bodies always tell the truth. Imagine walking into a room and knowing within seconds who's confident and who's faking it, who's open and who's guarded, who's comfortable and who's scared. You don't learn this by talking more. You learn it by watching more. We were all born with this skill. Babies observe everything. But as we grow up, we're told to speak more, do more, hustle more, and slowly we forget to look. When you meet someone new, don't rush to impress. Be still. Watch how they move. Hear how they breathe. Feel their rhythm. Let them show you who they are before you show them who you are. Because most people reveal themselves. All you have to do is watch. The best communicators are not always the best talkers. They're the best watchers. They watch how people react to feedback. They watch how someone changes when a stronger voice enters the room. They notice when someone interrupts or stays silent too long. These details matter because people are always sending signals through tone, posture, speed, and silence. Once you can read those signals, you become fluent in a deeper language most never learn. Observation isn't about judgment. It's about understanding. Why they move the way they do, why they say the things they say, why they pull back when certain topics come up. The moment you stop trying to be interesting and instead become interested, your social world will change. You'll walk into spaces and sense the mood. You'll know who to approach and how. You'll know when someone's open to connection or when they need space. But observation starts with yourself. Can you notice your own patterns? Do you get nervous in certain crowds? Do you fidget when you're unsure? Do you speak louder when you feel ignored? This is self-observation, and it's where all social intelligence begins. You must see yourself before you can truly see others. When you understand your own patterns, triggers, and defense mechanisms, you begin to recognize them in others. You build empathy. You stop reacting. You start responding. There's a calm power that comes from knowing your own reactions. And when you pair that with deep observation of others, you become someone who moves with intention, not impulse. You don't need to talk more. You don't need to be louder. You just need to be the one who sees. Let everyone else play the loud game. You play the deep game. Chapter 2: Reading Between the Lines. The Unspoken Language. Once you start observing, truly observing, you'll realize something surprising. Most of what people communicate isn't spoken. In fact, it's not even conscious. Words are only a small part of the story. The tone, the pause, the look in the eyes, the shift in the seat, the tightness in the shoulders. These carry more truth than any sentence ever could. We've been taught to focus on what people say, but the real art lies in noticing what they're not saying. That's where the unspoken language lives. That's where their truth hides. When you start reading between the lines, the world opens up. People can no longer fool you with charm, confuse you with nice words, or hide behind polite masks. Imagine someone says, "I'm fine." Simple, short, clear. But their eyes are looking down. Their voice sounds flat. Their hands are clenched. Now what do you believe? The words or the signals behind them? This is where most people miss the mark. They only listen to words. But social intelligence means listening to everything. The words, the tone, the face, the body. All of it speaks. Let's say someone laughs at a joke, but their smile doesn't reach their eyes. That's a sign. Or someone says they're excited, but their shoulders drop when they speak. Another sign. They say, "I'm happy to help," but they avoid eye contact. Yet another sign. These aren't accidents. They're emotional slips. Tiny truths that leak out when people try to hide how they really feel. The skilled listener hears the tension. The skilled reader sees the distance. The socially intelligent person connects the dots. You don't need superpowers for this. You need awareness. You need to slow down enough to catch what most people miss. Here's the deeper truth. People don't always intend to hide. Often, they don't even know what they're feeling. They might say yes because they don't know how to say no. They might pretend to be strong because they were never taught how to ask for help. So they speak one way, but their energy speaks another. If you can tune into that energy, you gain access to a level of understanding that changes everything. You become the person who can comfort without asking questions. You become the friend who understands what someone needs, not just what they say. Reading between the lines also means picking up on patterns. Sometimes the truth isn't in a single moment, it's in the repetition. Someone always interrupts when they're nervous. Someone always changes the topic when they feel insecure. Someone always jokes when the room gets serious. These habits are signals, and when you start connecting them, you see people more clearly than they see themselves. You'll start noticing who gets louder when they feel ignored, who becomes sarcastic when they feel hurt, who tries to impress others to avoid feeling invisible. Most of these behaviors aren't conscious. They're survival strategies, learned patterns people picked up to protect themselves. With that insight, you gain a rare power, the ability to respond, not react. When someone lashes out, most people react with defense or anger. But the socially intelligent person steps back and asks, what's underneath this reaction? Maybe it's fear. Maybe it's shame. Maybe it's exhaustion. Once you recognize the emotion beneath the behavior, your entire response shifts. You don't get pulled into the chaos. You speak to the emotion, not just the behavior. Sometimes the most important message someone sends you is silence. That's silence after a question. That's silence when the room is full of laughter, but their eyes are distant. That's silence when they could speak, but don't. Most people run from silence. They fill it with words, with jokes, with anything. But silence is a space where truth lives. A person's silence may say, I don't feel safe here. Or, I don't think you'll understand. Or even, I don't have the words yet. If you can sit in that silence without rushing it, you give someone the gift of space. And that gift builds connection. True social intelligence isn't about controlling conversations. It's about creating spaces where people feel seen, heard, and held even when they don't know how to express themselves. When you read between the lines, you begin to understand people from the inside out. You stop taking things personally. You stop reacting to surface behavior. You stop getting fooled by polished words or fake smiles. Instead, you listen to energy. You read emotion. You feel truth. And when you speak into that truth. You don't try to fix people or win them or impress them. You try to understand them. And in this world, that's rare. That's powerful. That's magnetic. Chapter 3: Responding with Power. The Art of Calm Communication. There's a difference between reacting and responding. A reaction is quick. It's automatic. It often comes from a place of emotion, anger, fear, frustration. A response, on the other hand, is intentional. It's thoughtful. It's calm. And in the world of social intelligence, your ability to respond rather than react is everything. It's not about being emotionless. It's about having emotional control. It's about holding space even when others lose theirs. It's about choosing your words, your tone, and your timing. Not because you're trying to impress anyone, but because you're grounded. This is what makes communication powerful. Calmness is not weakness, it's control. And when you can stay calm in a heated situation, you change the energy of the room. Picture this. You walk into a room. There's tension. Someone just got criticized. Another person is avoiding eye contact. The atmosphere feels heavy. Most people would either freeze or try to fix the discomfort. But you breathe, you observe, you listen, and when you speak, your voice is steady. Your energy is firm but soft. In that moment, you don't just say something, you do something. You lower the emotional temperature. You create space for clarity. You show leadership. How do you get there? It starts inside. Most people speak from their wounds, from their fears, from their insecurity. That's why their communication feels sharp or defensive or aggressive. But when you've done the work to calm your inner world, your outer voice begins to change. You no longer feel the need to win every argument. You no longer take every word personally. You no longer seek to dominate. Instead, you seek to connect. Let's say someone insults you. They call you lazy or useless or say something that cuts deep. The natural reaction is to snap back, to defend yourself, to prove them wrong. But what if you didn't? What if you just looked at them, steady and calm, and said, is there something else going on here? That single sentence, spoken without anger, without sarcasm, without ego, can flip the entire situation. Why? Because it shows that you're not reacting to the surface. You're responding to the energy underneath. This kind of calm doesn't come overnight. It's trained. It's built through experience, reflection, and awareness. You train yourself by pausing before you speak. You train yourself by breathing before responding. You train yourself by learning to feel emotions without being controlled by them. You don't deny anger. You just don't let it drive the car. You don't ignore fear. You just don't let it choose your words. You become someone who holds space. That phrase, holding space, means allowing others to express themselves without your energy making it worse. It means you listen without interrupting. You stay still even when emotions rise. You respond when ready, not when triggered. Let's say someone comes to you in tears. They're overwhelmed. They're spiraling. Most people jump in with advice, or they try to cheer the person up, or they panic and say nothing at all. But the calm communicator stays present. They let the person speak. They breathe. They wait. And when the moment is right, they say something simple, honest, and real. Something like, "I'm here," or "I hear you. Take your time." These words aren't long, but they are full of weight because they come from calm, not chaos. Your tone matters more than your words. You can say, "I'm fine," in a tone that sounds angry, tired, joyful, or fake, and the listener will always believe your tone over your words. That's why calm communication isn't just what you say, it's how you say it. Slow your speech. Breathe through your words. Let your voice carry warmth, not tension. When you speak slowly and clearly, people feel safer around you. They open up more. They listen better. They trust deeper. In communication, silence is also a tool. Sometimes saying nothing speaks the loudest. You don't have to fill every gap. You don't have to rush to reply. You don't have to prove your point every time. Sometimes a pause is more powerful than a punchline. That pause gives people space to think, to feel, to breathe. And when you allow silence, you allow depth. This is especially important in conflict. When someone is angry or upset, don't match their fire with fire. Let them speak. Let them release. And then when they've burned through their words, you step in, calm, and you say only what's needed. You don't shame them. You don't lecture them. You respond with intention. Calm communication doesn't mean letting people walk all over you. It means setting clear boundaries with grace. You can say no without guilt. You can express discomfort without yelling. You can walk away from disrespect without creating drama. A boundary doesn't have to be loud. It just has to be firm. Say, "That doesn't work for me." Say, "I'm not available for that." Say, "Let's talk when we're both calm." When you speak like this with clarity and calmness, you train people how to treat you. Calm communication is not a trick. It's a way of life. It means living from the inside out, not being tossed around by other people's moods, insults, or energy. It means choosing words that build, not break. It means being slow to anger, quick to understand. It means standing in your truth without needing to shout. How do you get better at this? Start with stillness. Start with watching your breath. Start with noticing your triggers. And start by asking yourself before you speak, am I reacting or am I responding? That question alone can change your life. Chapter 4, Beneath the Mask, Recognizing the Emotions Driving Behavior. You can't connect with people if you don't understand what moves them. Not what they say they want, not what they pretend to be, but what they truly feel. Every human behavior, every action, every decision, it's all driven by emotion. Even when people think they're being logical, emotion is underneath it, guiding, pushing, whispering in the background. If you want to become socially intelligent, you must learn the emotional codes behind people's choices. You must learn to feel what they feel, not just hear what they say. And that begins with emotional awareness. Everyone you meet is carrying something inside. A story, a fear, a wound. And whether they show it or not, it affects how they act. Some people chase attention because they never felt seen. Some interrupt because they're afraid of being forgotten. Some stay silent because they were punished for speaking up. You'll never see this in their words, but you'll feel it in their energy if you're paying attention. This is emotional awareness. It's not about labeling people or judging them. It's about recognizing the invisible engine that drives their behavior. Think of someone who always jokes around, even when things are serious. To most, that person seems carefree or funny. But look closer. That constant humor might be hiding pain. It might be their shield, their mask, their escape. When you learn to recognize these patterns, you stop taking things personally. You stop reacting to surface behavior. You begin to understand. And when you understand someone emotionally, your entire relationship with them changes. Let's say someone snaps at you for no reason. The normal reaction is to feel insulted or angry, but the emotionally aware person sees through it. They ask themselves, what's this really about? Maybe it's not you. Maybe it's their stress, their fear, their sadness. You can't fix it for them, but you don't need to. Sometimes just seeing it changes how you respond. There are 6 core emotions that drive most human behavior: love, fear, anger, sadness, joy, and shame. Every choice a person makes is influenced by one or more of these emotions. Someone starts a conversation out of love because they care. Someone walks away because of fear of being hurt. Someone lashes out in anger because they feel disrespected. Someone hides in silence because they carry shame. Someone smiles wide because they feel joy, even for a moment. Someone lies because sadness makes the truth too painful. When you learn to recognize which emotion is at play, you gain a new kind of vision. You don't just see people, you feel them. Let's take an example. A friend at dinner is constantly critical. They point out small mistakes. They seem to enjoy finding flaws. To most, they're just annoying. But an emotionally intelligent person looks deeper. Maybe that person feels invisible in their family. Maybe they grew up only receiving love when they were perfect. So now they try to control others because they never learned how to feel safe. You're not excusing their behavior. You're explaining it. And in that space of understanding, you respond differently. Not to their mask, but to their emotion. This doesn't mean you have to fix everyone. It doesn't mean you have to take responsibility for their emotions. It means you move from reaction to recognition, from frustration to understanding. Emotional awareness also means knowing when someone's behavior is really about you. Sometimes it is. Sometimes you did hurt them. Sometimes you were insensitive. And if you're emotionally intelligent, you'll recognize your own impact too. That requires humility. That requires listening, not just defending. That requires checking in with yourself, your tone, your timing, your words. Most people were never taught how to deal with their emotions. They were taught to hide, to suppress, to perform. Be strong. Don't cry. Get over it. These phrases created generations of emotionally blind people. But not you. You're waking up. You're learning. You're becoming aware. Now you begin to see that emotions are not the enemy. They are messengers. They're trying to tell you something about what matters, about what hurts, about what needs healing. Once you start listening to your own emotions, you begin to see the emotions in others with new eyes. You see that anger is often just sadness wearing armor. You see that arrogance is often just fear wearing a crown. You see that distance is often just a wound hiding from rejection. This kind of awareness gives you power, not to manipulate, but to connect, not to control, but to understand, not to dominate, but to build trust. People don't want to be judged. They want to be known. They want to feel safe. They want to be seen without having to explain everything. If you can give that to someone, if you can see their emotion and not flinch, if you can hold space without pushing, if you can meet their energy without losing yours, you become unforgettable. How do you build this skill? You start with silence, with listening, with asking yourself what's really going on here. You slow down, you observe, you feel, you ask, what's the emotion under this behavior? And you respond to that emotion, not just the words. You practice empathy. You reflect often. And you learn to speak into people's hearts, not just their ears. It takes time. It takes patience. But once you build this awareness, your relationships become deeper, your communication becomes clearer, your presence becomes healing, and you become someone others trust, even in their darkest moments. Chapter 5: The Gift of Listening. How to hear what matters. Most people listen to reply. Very few listen to understand. And even fewer listen to feel. But the ones who do, they're the ones people remember. Listening, real listening, is not passive. It's not just waiting for your turn to talk. It's not just staying quiet while someone speaks. It's a full body, full heart presence. It's a gift. One of the rarest gifts you can give another human being. You can hear thousands of voices in your life. But the moment someone truly listens to you, it changes everything. Suddenly, you feel valued, seen, important. And that's what you have the power to offer to others if you learn how to listen, not just with your ears, but with your whole being. Let's begin with one simple truth. People are not always asking for answers. They're asking to be heard, to be felt, to know that someone, even one person, understands what they're going through. You don't need the perfect words. You don't need to solve their problems. You just need to be present. But presence is rare because most people are distracted. They're thinking about their own lives, their own responses, their own pain. And when someone talks, they're already forming their reply before the sentence is even finished. That's not listening. That's waiting to talk. Social intelligence requires a different kind of presence. You listen without planning your answer. You listen without interrupting. You listen without turning the conversation back to yourself. You let the person empty themselves, and you stay with them fully. That's real connection. There are levels of listening. The first is surface listening. You hear the words, but you're not really tuned in. You nod. You respond, but your mind is elsewhere. The second is active listening. You're paying attention. You make eye contact. You repeat some of their words. You're engaged. The third is empathetic listening. This is where true connection happens. You don't just hear the words, you feel what they're feeling. You pick up on tone, emotion, silence. You listen with your heart. And then there is a fourth level, soulful listening. This is rare. This is when your presence alone feels healing. When the other person speaks and senses that they're safe, truly safe, to be exactly who they are. There's no judgment, no rush, no advice. Just stillness and space. To listen like this, you must become quiet inside. You must clear your mind of assumptions, of solutions, of ego. You must be with the person moment to moment without trying to steer the conversation. Most people have never been truly listened to. They've been talked over, misunderstood, or ignored. So when you listen to someone with full presence, they feel something different. They can't always explain it, but they feel it, and they remember you for it. This is not about being a therapist. It's not about fixing anyone. It's about making space. You become a safe place in a noisy world. Let's take an example. Your friend says, "I've been really tired lately." A surface listener might say, "Yeah, me too. Life's crazy." An active listener might say, "You've been tired because of work?" But an emotionally intelligent listener pauses. They lean in. They feel the heaviness in that sentence. And maybe they say something like, "You sound exhausted. Do you want to talk about it?" Or maybe they say nothing. They just wait. And in that silence, the friend continues. "It's not just work. I don't even know what I'm doing anymore. I feel stuck." And just like that, the truth begins to rise. Not because you asked, not because you pushed, but because you listened. Listening isn't just done with your ears. It's done with your body. Your eye contact says, "I'm here." Your posture says, "You matter." Your silence says, "Take your time." The way you tilt your head, lean in slightly, nod gently. It all signals safety. It tells the other person that this is a place they can speak without fear. But it must be real. Fake interest is worse than no interest. Don't pretend to care. Be real. Even if you can't fully understand someone's experience, you can respect their emotion. You can honor their honesty. You can hold their words with care. Let's also talk about listening in conflict. Most people don't listen during an argument. They defend, they attack, they wait for their turn to prove they're right. But social intelligence means listening even when emotions are high. You pause, you breathe, you ask, what are they really trying to say? Sometimes a person shouts, "You never care about me." But what they're really saying is, "I feel alone." Sometimes someone says, "You always disappoint me." But what they mean is, "I'm scared to trust again." When you can hear the emotion behind the words, your response changes. Instead of fighting back, you create space for the truth to come out. You might say, "I can hear that you're hurt. Let's talk." Or, "I didn't realize you felt that way. Tell me more." This is powerful communication. This is leadership. And this is how relationships heal. Sometimes listening is about listening to silence. When someone doesn't speak, that doesn't mean nothing is happening. Sometimes the deepest feelings come with no words. They pause. They look down. They try to speak, but can't. Stay there with them. Don't rush. Don't fill the space. Let the silence speak. Sometimes a person doesn't need your answer. They need your presence. Listening is not a soft skill. It is a power skill, a leadership skill, a connection skill. It changes how people feel around you. It changes how much they trust you. And it changes how you show up in every part of your life. You become the kind of person people confide in, the kind of person people respect, the kind of person who doesn't just talk well, but listens even better. Chapter 6: Questions that Open Doors. Unlocking Deeper Truths. Great conversations don't begin with great answers. They begin with great questions. The right question asked at the right time can open someone's heart. It can unlock a story they've never told. It can reveal a truth they didn't know they were holding inside. Most people ask questions to get information, but the emotionally intelligent person asks to build connection, to create space, to go deeper, to understand. It's not about being nosy. It's not about digging for drama. It's about showing someone they matter by caring enough to ask the kind of questions that say, "I want to know the real you." Shallow questions lead to shallow connection. But deep questions, gentle, honest, patient ones, can lead to moments people never forget. Think of a time someone asked you a question that made you pause. Not because it was complicated, but because it touched something inside you. That's the kind of question we're talking about here. There are two kinds of questions. The first is closed. Are you okay? Did you eat? Did you go to the event? These questions usually get short answers. Yes, no, maybe. They're fine for basic conversation, but they rarely open people up. Then there are open questions. How are you feeling about everything lately? What's been weighing on your mind recently? What's something you haven't said out loud, but want to? These kinds of questions invite the other person to explore themselves. They don't push, they pull. They say, "Let's go deeper if you're ready." The key is not just the words. It's your energy behind them. Are you truly present when you ask? Do you have time to listen if they open up? Are you prepared to hold what they share? If yes, then ask with your full presence. Sometimes the most powerful question is simple. What's your story? And then silence, stillness, space. Let them tell it how they want. No pressure, no judgment, no need to fix. Just witness it. The way someone responds will tell you more about their life than 1,000 facts ever could. Good questions aren't about sounding smart. They're about being genuinely curious. Not curious like a detective trying to catch someone. Curious like a friend trying to know someone. People can feel the difference. Ask, what brings you peace these days? Or, when do you feel most like yourself? Or what's something you used to believe but don't anymore? These aren't questions for small talk. These are questions for connection. And connection is what most people are starving for. Timing matters. Don't ask deep questions in shallow moments. Don't rush people into their emotions. Wait, watch, sense. If the moment feels safe, ask. If not, listen instead. Trust your intuition. And remember, some people take longer to open up. That's okay. Don't push. Just plant the seed. Let's also talk about follow-up questions. Many people ask one question and then move on, but the real magic is in the follow-up. Someone says, "Yeah, I've been overwhelmed lately." Most people would reply, "Oh man, I hear you. Same here." But you say, "Overwhelmed with what, if you don't mind sharing?" And then they speak again. And maybe you say, "That sounds heavy. How long has that been going on?" Now the conversation has depth. Now it's real. You didn't do anything complicated. You just stayed curious, stayed present, stayed human. That's what people remember. Sometimes the question that matters most isn't the one you ask them. It's the one you ask yourself while listening. What are they not saying? What emotion do I feel underneath their words? Do they need comfort, clarity, or just quiet? This internal awareness helps you adjust your questions with care. You can ask the same question in two different ways and get two very different reactions. "Why didn't you say something?" versus "Was something holding you back from speaking?" One feels like blame, the other feels like care. So when you ask softly. Ask without pressure. Ask with love. Let the other person feel that there's no right or wrong answer, only honesty. A good question is only as powerful as your ability to receive the answer. Don't interrupt. Don't relate it back to yourself. Let them speak their truth. Even if it makes you uncomfortable, even if you don't agree, even if it's messy, just hold it. You're not there to control the story. You're there to hold the space. After you ask a question, wait. Don't jump in. Don't explain. Let the silence do the work. People often need a few seconds to go inward, to find the real answer, to gather their courage. So give them that time. Sometimes the silence after a question is the most honest part of the whole conversation. Asking better questions doesn't just help you connect with others. It helps others connect with themselves. When someone answers a deep question, they often discover something inside they didn't know was there. Something hidden, something real, something healing. And you were the mirror that brought it out. That's not a small thing. That's a sacred thing. You don't need to be brilliant. You don't need to be charming. You don't need to impress. You just need to care enough to ask better questions and then care even more to hear the answers. That's social intelligence. That's emotional leadership. That's human connection at its highest level. Chapter 7. Building trust without speaking too much. Some people try to earn trust with big promises, with polished speeches, with perfect words. But in truth, trust is not built through what you say. It's built through what you consistently do and how you make people feel. And the most powerful kind of trust is the quiet kind. The kind that doesn't need to speak much. The kind that makes people feel safe just by being around you. In a world full of noise, being a calm and grounded presence builds more trust than any clever conversation. Trust is not given quickly, not real trust. It grows slowly, like roots beneath the surface. It's built in small moments, not grand ones. A glance, a pause, a word spoken softly at the right time, or even more powerful, a moment of not speaking when silence is needed. You don't need to talk a lot to build trust. You just need to be present, real, and consistent. When you are fully present with someone, they feel it. You're not checking your phone. You're not looking past them. You're not waiting to speak. You are simply with them. Here now. That kind of presence is rare and magnetic because most people don't feel seen. They feel rushed, talked over, dismissed. But when someone looks them in the eye, listens without judgment, and says very little, yet says it with full heart, it builds a bridge of trust that words alone could never build. Sometimes the most trustworthy people speak the least, not because they have nothing to say, but because they understand the weight of words. They speak only when it adds value. They know when to stay silent. They don't fill every gap. They don't try to impress. Their quiet confidence is calming. Their stillness becomes safety. That's the person others turn to when life gets heavy. Not because they're loud, but because they're stable. You become that person not by being perfect, but by being honest, grounded, reliable. People trust those whose energy doesn't swing wildly. If one day you're warm and the next you're cold, people pull back. They don't know who they're dealing with. They start to guard themselves. But if you are steady, even when life gets messy, people feel safe around you. They know what to expect. They know you won't explode or disappear. They know you can handle emotion without reacting from it. Steadiness builds trust. And steadiness doesn't mean being emotionless. It means being emotionally honest without being emotionally chaotic. You can say, "I'm not okay right now," in a calm voice. You can say, "I need a moment," without hurting anyone. You can feel things deeply and still stay grounded. That's strength. That's maturity. That's trustworthiness. Silence makes some people uncomfortable. They rush to fill it. They think silence is awkward, empty, or weak. But silence, when held with calmness, can be powerful. It says, "I'm not here to dominate this space." It says, "You can take your time." It says, "I don't need to control this moment." And in that space, people often say what they really feel because they don't feel pressured. They feel safe. Silence builds trust when it comes from presence, not avoidance. If you say one thing and do another, trust is broken. But if you do what you say, even in the small things, trust begins to form. It's not about being perfect. It's about being consistent. If you say, "I'll call you back," and you do, it matters. If you say, "I'm here for you," and you are, it matters. If you show up on time, if you remember the details, if you stay calm when others panic, it all adds up. Because trust is not one big thing. It's 100 small things done right over time. People can feel when you're being real, and they can feel when you're not. You don't need to be impressive. You need to be honest. If you don't know something, say so. If you're unsure, admit it. If you made a mistake, own it. This kind of honesty builds more trust than pretending ever will. Because people don't trust perfection. They trust vulnerability. They trust humility. They trust someone who's human. People who are trustworthy don't share everything they hear. They know how to protect the words others give them. When someone tells you something in confidence and you keep it to yourself, you become safe. And safe people are rare. Don't gossip. Don't retell other people's stories. Don't take what was shared in pain and turn it into entertainment. Protect it. Honor it, even if it seems small. Because people remember how you handled their pain. You can build trust without deep conversations, even in silence, even through your calm presence, even through small repeated kindnesses, holding the door, looking someone in the eye, being kind when you don't have to be, noticing when someone's energy is off, checking in, asking nothing in return. These things speak louder than words. The real test of trust is not when things are easy. It's when things get hard. If you can stay grounded when someone is emotional. If you can remain respectful during a disagreement. If you can sit with someone in silence when they're grieving, you become unforgettable. Because you didn't just show up for the good parts. You showed up when it mattered most. And you didn't need a lot of words to do it. Just presence, just calmness, just care. You don't need to speak a lot to build deep trust. You just need to be present. Be consistent. Be honest. Be safe. Speak with less noise and more weight. Listen with more heart and less judgment. Protect the space others give you and honor the emotions they don't know how to say. Chapter 8. Boundaries build connection. Say no without guilt. Many people believe that to connect with others, you have to always say yes. Yes to helping. Yes to showing up. Yes to doing more. Even when you're tired, overwhelmed, or hurting. But here's the truth. You cannot build real connection without boundaries. You cannot build trust without honesty. You cannot protect your peace if you're always afraid to say no. Boundaries are not walls. They're not cold. They're not selfish. Boundaries are bridges. They create clear lines of respect. They help both people feel safe. They make sure your connection doesn't come at the cost of your well-being. A boundary is anything that protects your energy, your time, your mental space, or your emotional safety. It can be as simple as, "I'm not available for that. I need some time alone. I don't like being spoken to that way. I'd rather not talk about this right now." These are not attacks. They're not rejections. They are healthy expressions of self-awareness. Here's what most people don't realize. When you don't set boundaries, you silently teach people that your needs don't matter. You give too much. You hold too much. You say yes when your heart says no. And slowly your energy drains. Your resentment grows. Your peace disappears. You become burned out. Not because people are bad, but because you didn't protect yourself with clarity. Social intelligence means knowing that connection doesn't mean overextending. It means knowing how to stay close to others without abandoning yourself. That's the balance. Setting a boundary doesn't mean being rude. It means being clear. People often think, if I say no, they'll get upset. Maybe they will, but their reaction doesn't mean your boundary was wrong. It just means they were used to getting yes from you, even when it cost you. You don't have to be harsh to be strong. You can be kind and still firm. You can say, "I care about you deeply, but I can't do this right now." You can say, "I respect your feelings, but this is what I need." You can say, "I want to support you, but not at the cost of my mental health." People may not like it, but the right people will respect it. Because real connection isn't about comfort, it's about honesty. Most of the time, people avoid setting boundaries because of guilt. They feel bad for saying no. They feel responsible for how others feel. They think love means sacrifice no matter the cost. But love without boundaries becomes control. Support without limits becomes resentment. Care without rest becomes burnout. You are not selfish for protecting your peace. You are not mean for needing space. You are not cold for wanting rest. Guilt is a signal, but it's not always telling the truth. It's often just the echo of an old belief that your worth is tied to your usefulness, that your value is tied to how much you give. But listen carefully. You don't have to bleed to prove you care. You don't have to break to keep others whole. You are allowed to take up space. You are allowed to say no. You are allowed to be kind to yourself first. When you are clear with your limits, people know where they stand. There's no confusion, no guessing, no silent resentment building underneath. You can love someone deeply and still say, "I can't talk right now. I need time to think. This is not something I'm comfortable doing." And in that honesty, trust grows. People may not like your limits at first, but over time, they learn to respect you more because your yes means something. It's not forced. It's real. You can be a great listener and still have limits. You can say, "I want to support you, but I'm not in a good headspace right now." You can say, "Let's talk about this tomorrow when I can give you my full attention." Boundaries and listening protect both of you. It protects you from burnout, and it protects them from getting half your heart when they deserve all of it. Boundaries also protect your relationships from resentment. When you say yes, but mean no, you start to resent the other person. And they can feel it. They can sense your reluctance, your distance, your frustration. But when you say no clearly and kindly, there's no hidden anger. There's no fake smile. There's just honesty. And honesty heals. Some people will test your boundaries. They'll push, they'll guilt, they'll try to make you feel bad for having limits. That's okay. Hold your ground. Not with anger, but with calm. Say, "I understand you're disappointed, but this is what I need." Say, "I care about our relationship, which is why I'm being honest." Say, "I'd rather say no now than resent you later." The people who truly care about you will respect your boundaries. They may not like them, but they'll respect them. The people who don't respect your boundaries are showing you who they are. Believe them, and protect yourself accordingly. Setting boundaries is not about building walls. It's about building bridges. Healthy bridges that both people can cross safely. It's about creating a relationship where both people feel respected, heard, and valued. Where connection doesn't come at the cost of your soul. Where love doesn't require you to disappear. Chapter 9. Mastering emotional control. Stay grounded when it gets loud. There's a moment in every intense situation where you have a choice. You can react from emotion, letting it drive your words and actions. Or you can respond from a grounded place, using emotion as information rather than fuel. The people who master this choice, who can stay calm when the world around them is chaos, they become magnetic. They become the anchor everyone else grabs onto when the storm hits. Emotional control is not about becoming a robot. It's not about suppressing feelings or pretending nothing affects you. It's about feeling everything and choosing your response anyway. It's about being the thermostat in the room, not the thermometer. The thermometer reacts to the temperature. The thermostat sets it. Picture this. You're in a heated discussion. Voices are raised. Someone says something that cuts deep. Your first instinct is to fire back, to defend, to escalate. But what if you didn't? What if you took a breath, felt the anger rise, acknowledged it, and then chose your words carefully? In that moment, you don't just change the conversation. You change the entire energy of the room. This kind of control is trained, not born. It comes from understanding that emotions are visitors, not residents. They come, they carry a message, and then they go. But most people let emotions move in and redecorate their entire personality. They become their anger, their fear, their hurt. And from that place, they say things they regret, make decisions that harm them, and damage relationships that matter. The emotionally intelligent person learns to feel without becoming. They feel anger, but don't become angry. They feel fear, but don't become fearful. They experience the emotion, listen to what it's trying to tell them, and then choose their response from a place of wisdom, not wound. How do you develop this? It starts with the pause. Before you speak, before you act, before you react, pause. Even for 2 seconds. In that pause, you create space between the trigger and your response. And in that space, you have power. You can ask yourself, what am I really feeling right now? What does this emotion want me to know? How do I want to respond to this situation? Breathing is your anchor. When emotions rise, your breath becomes shallow. You lose connection to your body, to your wisdom, to your center. But when you breathe deeply, slowly, intentionally, you send a signal to your nervous system that you're safe. You ground yourself in the present moment. You remember who you are beyond this feeling. Let's talk about reframing. Your emotions are often created by the story you tell yourself about what's happening. Someone cuts you off in traffic. You can tell yourself, they're disrespecting me. They think they're better than me. And you'll feel angry. Or you can tell yourself, maybe they're having an emergency. Maybe they didn't see me. Maybe they're just human and made a mistake. Same situation, different story, different emotion. The story you choose determines the emotion you feel. And the emotion you feel determines the action you take. So choose your stories wisely. This doesn't mean being naive or making excuses for people. It means not assuming the worst when you don't know the truth. It means giving yourself and others the benefit of the doubt when possible. When you feel overwhelmed, name the emotion. Say it out loud or in your mind. I'm feeling frustrated right now. I'm feeling scared. I'm feeling hurt. Naming the emotion takes some of its power away. It reminds you that this is something you're experiencing, not something you are. It creates distance between you and the feeling, and in that distance, you find your power to choose. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is remove yourself from the situation. If you're too activated, if the emotions are too strong, if you can't think clearly, step away. Say, I need a moment to collect myself. Say, I want to respond well, so I need some space. This isn't weakness. This is wisdom. This is emotional intelligence in action. Emotional control also means understanding your triggers. We all have them. Those specific words, tones, or situations that set us off. The person who knows their triggers and prepares for them has an advantage. They can see the trigger coming and brace themselves. They can remind themselves of who they want to be in that moment. Remember, other people's emotions are not your responsibility to carry. You can have compassion for someone's pain without taking it on as your own. You can support someone without drowning in their chaos. You can love someone without losing yourself in their storm. Emotional boundaries are as important as physical ones. The goal is not to never feel. The goal is to feel fully and respond wisely. To let your emotions inform you without controlling you. To use them as a compass, not a map. To honor what they're telling you while still choosing your path forward. When you master emotional control, you become a safe harbor for others. People trust you with their feelings because they know you won't be overwhelmed by them. They open up to you because your calm presence makes them feel secure. They follow your lead because your grounded energy creates stability in an unstable world. This is not about perfection. You will still get triggered. You will still react sometimes. You will still feel overwhelmed. But each time you catch yourself, each time you pause, each time you choose response over reaction, you get stronger. You build the muscle of emotional intelligence. And that muscle serves you for life. Chapter 10, Leading Softly. Influence without force. True influence has nothing to do with volume. It has nothing to do with force. It has nothing to do with demanding that people listen to you. The most powerful influencers in the world lead softly. They don't push people toward their vision. They invite them. They don't control outcomes. They create conditions. They don't dominate conversations. They guide them. This kind of leadership is magnetic because it's based on trust, not fear. It's based on connection, not control. It's based on service, not selfishness. And when you learn to lead this way, people don't follow you because they have to. They follow you because they want to. Soft leadership starts with presence. When you walk into a room, people feel your energy before they hear your words. Are you calm or anxious? Are you centered or scattered? Are you present or distracted? Your energy sets the tone for everything that follows. The soft leader cultivates an energy of peace, confidence, and openness. Not because they're trying to impress anyone, but because they're grounded in who they are. Think about the people who have influenced you most in your life. Were they the loudest? Were they the ones who demanded attention? Probably not. They were probably the ones who listened deeply, spoke thoughtfully, and made you feel heard. They were the ones who asked good questions, shared wisdom gently, and trusted you to make your own decisions. They led by example, not by force. Soft leadership is about asking, not telling. Instead of saying, "You should do this," you ask, "What do you think would happen if you tried this?" Instead of saying, "That's wrong," you ask, "Help me understand your perspective." Instead of giving answers, you ask questions that help people find their own answers. Because people are far more likely to commit to ideas they discover than ideas they're told to accept. This doesn't mean being weak or indecisive. It means being secure enough in yourself that you don't need to dominate others to feel powerful. It means trusting that people are smart, capable, and willing to contribute when they feel valued. It means understanding that influence is not about getting people to do what you want. It's about helping people become who they're meant to be. The soft leader knows how to plant seeds. They share an idea, tell a story, ask a question, or offer a perspective, and then they step back. They don't push. They don't pressure. They don't manipulate. They trust that if the seed is meant to grow, it will. And if it doesn't, that's okay too. They're not attached to controlling outcomes. They're committed to serving people. Let's talk about listening as leadership. Most leaders think their job is to talk, to give direction, to have all the answers. But the soft leader knows that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is listen. Really listen. When people feel heard, they feel valued. When they feel valued, they trust. When they trust, they open up. When they open up, real change becomes possible. The soft leader creates safety. They make it okay for people to disagree, to share unpopular opinions, to admit when they don't know something. They don't shame people for mistakes. They don't punish vulnerability. They create an environment where people can be real, where they can think out loud, where they can take risks without fear of judgment. This kind of leadership is especially powerful in conflict. When tensions rise, when people are upset, when emotions are high, the soft leader doesn't fight fire with fire. They lower their voice. They slow down. They breathe. They ask, what's really going on here? What do we all want? How can we work together to find a solution? They de-escalate, not by avoiding the conflict, but by changing the energy around it. Soft leaders also know the power of story. They don't lecture people. They don't give long speeches about what people should do. They tell stories. They share experiences. They paint pictures with words. Stories bypass the mind's defenses and speak directly to the heart. They help people see possibilities they couldn't see before. They inspire without demanding. They influence without forcing. The soft leader is patient. They understand that real change takes time. They don't expect people to transform overnight. They don't get frustrated when progress is slow. They plant seeds, water them consistently, and trust the process. They celebrate small wins. They acknowledge progress. They encourage effort even when the results aren't perfect yet. This kind of leadership requires inner security. You have to be comfortable with not being the center of attention. You have to be okay with not getting credit. You have to find fulfillment in other people's success. You have to be confident enough in your own worth that you don't need to prove it by dominating others. But here's what happens when you lead this way. People feel safe around you. They feel heard. They feel valued. They feel empowered. And from that place, they do their best work. They contribute their best ideas. They become their best selves. Not because you forced them to, but because you created the conditions for their greatness to emerge. The soft leader doesn't need to be the smartest person in the room. They just need to be the one who brings out the intelligence in everyone else. They don't need to have all the answers. They just need to ask the right questions. They don't need to control everything. They just need to trust in the wisdom and goodness of the people they're leading. This is influence at its highest level. This is leadership that lasts. This is how you change the world. Not by force, but by love. Not by control, but by trust. Not by taking, but by giving. Not by demanding, but by inspiring. Chapter 11. From Tension to Trust. Turning conflict into understanding. Conflict is inevitable. In families, friendships, at work, in communities, wherever people come together with different needs, different values, different perspectives, tension will arise. Most people fear conflict. They avoid it, suppress it, or attack it. But the socially intelligent person sees conflict differently. They see it as information. They see it as an opportunity. They see it as a bridge to deeper understanding. The difference between conflict that destroys and conflict that builds is how you approach it. Are you trying to win or trying to understand? Are you defending your position or exploring the truth? Are you focused on being right or being helpful? The answers to these questions determine whether conflict becomes a wall or a doorway. Let's start with the foundation. Most conflict isn't really about the surface issue. It's about underlying needs that aren't being met. Someone feels unheard, unseen, disrespected, or afraid. They might be arguing about dishes or money or plans, but underneath they're fighting for their dignity, their security, their significance. When you can see past the surface to the heart of the matter, everything changes. The first step in transforming conflict is to shift your goal. Instead of trying to prove you're right, try to understand what's really happening. Instead of defending your position, try to discover what everyone needs. Instead of winning the argument, try to win the relationship. This shift in intention changes everything about how you show up. When someone is upset with you, your natural instinct is to defend yourself, to explain why they're wrong, to justify your actions. But what if you didn't? What if you just listened first? What if you said, Help me understand what happened from your perspective. What if you genuinely tried to see the situation through their eyes before asking them to see it through yours? This doesn't mean agreeing with everything they say. It doesn't mean taking responsibility for things that aren't your fault. It means honoring their experience, validating their feelings, and showing that you care enough to listen. Often, that's all people really want. They want to be heard. They want their feelings to matter. They want to know that their perspective has value. Let's talk about the power of validation. Validation doesn't mean agreement. It means acknowledgement. You can say, "I can see that you're really hurt by what happened." You can say, "It sounds like you felt dismissed, and that must have been frustrating." You can say, "Your feelings make sense to me, even if I experience things differently." These words don't make you weak. They make you wise. When people feel validated, they calm down. When they calm down, they can think more clearly. When they can think more clearly, they can participate in finding solutions. But when people feel attacked or dismissed, they go into defense mode. And in defense mode, no one can hear anything except the sound of their own hurt. The socially intelligent person also takes responsibility for their part in the conflict. Not for everything, but for their peace. They say, "I see how my tone might have sounded dismissive." They say, "I realize I should have communicated my needs more clearly." They say, "I'm sorry for how my actions affected you." Taking responsibility for your part doesn't make the other person right about everything, but it shows maturity. It shows humility, and it often inspires the other person to do the same. Sometimes you need to separate the person from the problem. Instead of saying, "You always interrupt me," you say, "I feel unheard when I'm interrupted." Instead of saying, "You're being selfish," you say, "I need to feel like my needs matter too." You attack the behavior, not the person. You focus on the issue, not their character. This makes it easier for them to hear you because they don't feel like they need to defend who they are. Let's also talk about timing. Not every moment is right for a difficult conversation. If someone is angry, overwhelmed, or distracted, they can't hear you clearly. If you're angry, overwhelmed, or distracted, you can't speak clearly. Sometimes the wisest thing you can say is, "This conversation is important to me. Can we talk about it when we're both in a better headspace?" Timing matters more than you think. The goal of conflict resolution is not to eliminate all disagreement. It's to find a way forward that honors both people's needs. It's to turn enemies into allies. It's to transform opposition into collaboration. This requires creativity. It requires flexibility. It requires believing that there's usually a solution that serves everyone if you're willing to look for it. Maybe you can't both get exactly what you want, but you can probably both get what you need if you're willing to think outside the box. Sometimes the most healing thing you can do after a conflict is to repair, to acknowledge the hurt that was caused, to express gratitude for the other person's willingness to work through it, to commit to doing better next time. Repair is what turns wounds into scars, scars into wisdom, and wisdom into strength. Conflict, handled well, doesn't weaken relationships. It strengthens them. It builds trust. It increases intimacy. It shows that you can weather storms together. It proves that the relationship is strong enough to handle truth, mature enough to handle difficulty, and valuable enough to fight for. The people who master conflict resolution become invaluable. They become the peacemakers, the bridge builders, the healers. They become the ones people turn to when relationships are strained, when teams are divided, when communities are torn apart. Not because they avoid conflict, but because they transform it. Chapter 12, Reading the Room, Mastering Group Energy. Groups have a life of their own, a personality, an energy, a mood that's bigger than any individual person. And just like with individuals, this energy speaks if you know how to listen. The person who can read a room, who can sense the collective mood and respond appropriately, has a superpower. They know when to speak and when to stay silent. They know when to bring lightness and when to honor heaviness. They know how to work with the energy instead of against it. When you walk into any gathering, information is flowing, but it's not in words. It's in the space between people. It's in body language, in tone, in what's not being said. Are people leaning in or pulling back? Are conversations flowing or feeling forced? Is there laughter or tension? Is there connection or distance? All of this tells a story about what's really happening in the room. The first thing to notice is the overall energy level. Is it high or low? High energy might feel exciting, electric, buzzing with possibility. But it might also feel frantic, overwhelming, or chaotic. Low energy might feel calm, intimate, and focused. But it might also feel heavy, tired, or depressed. There's no right or wrong energy, but understanding what's present helps you match it appropriately. Look for the natural leaders. In every group, certain people hold more influence. They might not be the loudest or the most talkative, but when they speak, others listen. When they laugh, others laugh. When they shift their attention, the whole room follows. These are the people whose energy affects everyone else. Understanding who holds this power helps you understand how the group flows. Notice the alliances and tensions. Who sits near whom? Who makes eye contact across the room? Who avoids looking at certain people? Who speaks after whom? Groups are made up of smaller relationships, and these relationships affect the whole. If two key people are in conflict, the whole group feels it. If two people are really connected, their harmony spreads. Pay attention to the unspoken rules. Every group has them. In some groups, it's okay to interrupt. In others, it's considered rude. In some groups, vulnerability is welcomed. In others, it's seen as weakness. In some groups, humor is appreciated. In others, it's seen as inappropriate. You learn these rules by watching, not asking. And when you honor them, you fit in. When you violate them, you stand out, and not usually in a good way. Listen for what's not being discussed. Sometimes the most important thing in the room is the thing no one is talking about. The recent conflict that everyone's pretending didn't happen. The elephant in the room that everyone sees but no one names. The tension that everyone feels but no one addresses. The socially intelligent person feels these undercurrents and decides whether to address them or honor them. Sometimes your role is to shift the energy. If the room feels too heavy, maybe you can bring some lightness. If it feels too chaotic, maybe you can bring some calm. If it feels disconnected, maybe you can ask a question that brings people together. But this requires sensitivity. You can't force an energy shift. You can only invite it. Other times, your role is to match the energy. If the room is grieving, don't try to cheer it up. Sit in the grief. If the room is celebrating, don't bring it down with your worries. Join the celebration. If the room is focused and serious, don't distract with jokes. Honor the focus. Matching energy shows respect. It shows that you're with people, not against them. Sometimes your role is to be invisible. Not every moment requires your input. Not every silence needs to be filled. Not every conversation needs your opinion. Sometimes the most intelligent thing you can do is blend into the background and let others shine. This doesn't make you weak. It makes you wise. But sometimes your role is to step up. When no one else will address the obvious problem. When the group is stuck and needs direction. When you master reading the room, you become invaluable in group settings. You become the person who knows when to speak and when to listen, when to lead and when to follow, when to bring people together and when to give them space. You become someone who makes groups better just by being there. Not because you dominate them, but because you understand them. Chapter 13. Adapt without losing yourself. Social flexibility. One of the greatest social intelligence skills is the ability to adapt to different people and situations while still remaining authentically yourself. It's like being water. Water takes the shape of whatever container it's in, but it never stops being water. You can adjust your energy, your communication style, your approach to match what a situation calls for, but you never lose your core identity. This is not about being fake or manipulative. It's about being socially flexible. It's about recognizing that different people need different things from you, and different situations call for different versions of yourself. The key is making these adjustments consciously and authentically, not losing yourself in the process. Think about how you naturally adjust in different contexts. You probably speak differently to a child than to your boss. You probably act differently at a funeral than at a party. You probably approach a shy person differently than an outgoing person. This is natural social flexibility. We all do it to some degree. The socially intelligent person just does it more intentionally and more skillfully. Let's talk about matching communication styles. Some people are direct and prefer you to be direct with them. They want you to get to the point quickly, speak clearly, and respect their time. Others are more relationship-oriented and prefer you to connect personally before getting down to business. They want warmth, stories, and emotional connection. Neither approach is right or wrong, but using the wrong approach with the wrong person creates friction. Pay attention to how people prefer to receive information. Some people are visual and respond well to pictures, diagrams, and metaphors. Some are auditory and prefer detailed explanations and verbal processing. Some are kinesthetic and need to feel, touch, and experience things to understand them. When you can adapt your communication to match how someone learns best, your message lands more effectively. Consider energy levels and pace. Some people are high energy and fast-paced. They think quickly, speak quickly, and want to move quickly. If you're naturally slower and more deliberate, you might need to pick up your pace a bit to match theirs. Other people are naturally calm and reflective. They need time to think, time to process, time to respond. If you're naturally fast, you might need to slow down to make them comfortable. But here's the crucial part. Adaptation is not imitation. You're not trying to become a completely different person. You're not trying to mirror everything about someone else. You're making subtle adjustments to create connection and comfort while still being fundamentally yourself. You're finding the version of yourself that works best in each situation. Let's say you're naturally introverted, but you're at a networking event where extroverted energy is valued. You can turn up your social energy for a few hours. You can be more outgoing, more talkative, more animated than usual. But you're still you. You're just accessing a different part of your personality. And afterward, you'll probably need some quiet time to recharge, and that's okay. Or maybe you're naturally very direct and blunt, but you're dealing with someone who's sensitive and easily hurt. You can soften your approach. You can be more gentle with your words, more careful with your tone, more patient with your timing. You're not being fake. You're being considerate. You're choosing the version of directness that serves the relationship. The danger comes when you lose yourself completely in trying to please others. When you become so focused on being what you think others want that you forget who you actually are. When you're constantly performing instead of just being. This creates exhaustion, resentment, and ultimately, inauthentic relationships. So how do you maintain authenticity while adapting? First, know yourself deeply. Know your values, your boundaries, your non-negotiables. These things don't change regardless of who you're with or where you are. They're your true north. As long as you honor these core aspects of yourself, you can be flexible with everything else. Second, think of adaptation as choosing which aspects of yourself to emphasize, not which aspects to fake. You have many different facets to your personality. In some situations, you emphasize your serious side. In others, your playful side. In some, your nurturing side. In others, your challenging side. All of these are authentically you. You're just choosing which to lead with. Third, this all comes back to observation. You can't adapt if you're not paying attention. Before you even engage, take a moment to sense the other person. What's their pace? What's their energy? How do they communicate? Your ability to adapt is directly tied to your ability to observe what's needed in the moment. You're not guessing. You're responding to the data they're giving you. This is social intelligence in its most practical form. Social flexibility also means knowing when not to adapt. If someone's behavior is disrespectful, toxic, or violates your boundaries, your job is not to adapt to it. Your job is to hold your ground. Your job is to protect your peace. Flexibility doesn't mean you bend until you break. It means you bend where it's wise and stand firm where it's necessary. Knowing the difference is the art. Think of it this way. A rigid tree breaks in a storm. A flexible reed bends and survives. In social situations, rigidity creates conflict. It says, "You must meet me on my terms." Flexibility creates connection. It says, "I'm willing to meet you where you are." This doesn't make you weaker. It makes you stronger. It makes you more resilient, more effective, more capable of navigating the complex world of human relationships. The goal is not to become a social chameleon, changing your colors so much you forget your own. The goal is to become a master artist, knowing which colors to use from your palette to create a beautiful connection with each person you meet. You remain the artist. You keep your integrity, but you have the wisdom to know that not every canvas requires the same brushstroke. That's adaptability. That's power. That's connecting without losing yourself. Chapter 14: Lasting Bonds. Building connections that endure. We live in a world of temporary connections. We follow, we friend, we match, we network. We collect contacts like currency, hoping that a wider net will somehow make us feel less alone. But 1,000 shallow connections can never replace the weight and warmth of one deep bond. The skills we've explored, observation, listening, emotional control, setting boundaries, are not just tools for navigating social situations. They are the very ingredients for building relationships that last a lifetime. Lasting bonds don't happen by accident. They are cultivated. They are built, moment by moment, choice by choice, through the consistent application of social intelligence. This is the ultimate purpose of this art, not just to be liked, but to be loved, not just to be understood, but to belong. The foundation of any connection that endures is consistency. It's the quiet, unglamorous, and most vital element of trust. Anyone can be charming for an evening. Anyone can be a good listener for an hour. Anyone can show up when it's convenient. But who are you when it's inconvenient? Who are you when no one is watching? Who are you, day after day, week after week, when the novelty has worn off and all that's left is the reality of two human beings trying to stay connected in a busy world? Consistency is the answer to those questions. It's showing up when you say you will. It's being the same person in private that you are in public. It's letting your actions, over time, paint a picture of reliability that words never could. People don't build lasting trust with your potential. They build it with your patterns. When your pattern is one of steadiness, honesty, and presence, you become a safe harbor in the storm of their life. They know they can count on you, not just for the big things, but for the small things that make up a life. And in that knowing, a bond begins to form that can weather almost anything. But trust alone isn't enough for true intimacy. The deepest connections are forged in the fire of shared vulnerability. We are taught to present our best selves, to hide our flaws, to showcase our strengths. We build polished exteriors, hoping to impress others into loving us. But you can't connect with a mask. You can only connect with a soul. And a soul reveals itself not in its perfection, but in its cracks. Vulnerability is the courageous act of letting someone see those cracks. It's saying, "I'm scared." It's admitting, "I don't know." It's sharing a story of failure or shame. When you offer your vulnerability to someone, you are giving them a profound gift. You are telling them, "I trust you with the parts of me I don't show the world." This act of trust is an invitation. It creates a space of such profound safety that it invites the other person to be vulnerable in return. And in that shared space, where two imperfect souls meet without pretense, a bond is formed that is unbreakable. This is not about oversharing or emotional dumping. It's about discerning who has earned the right to hear your story and then bravely sharing it. One of the greatest acts of social intelligence is knowing when to let your guard down, to stop performing and just be real. Because people may admire your strength, but they will connect with your humanity. Lasting bonds are not built only in the shadows of struggle. They are also nourished in the light of celebration. To truly love someone is to celebrate their victories as if they were your own, without a trace of envy or competition. When a friend gets the promotion, when a partner achieves a lifelong dream, when a loved one experiences a moment of pure joy, can you be fully present in that joy with them? Can you amplify their happiness with your genuine excitement? Many people are good at showing up for the pain. Fewer are skilled at showing up for the joy. To celebrate another's success without making it about yourself is a rare and beautiful skill. It shows that you are for them, that their win is your win. And equally, enduring connections require you to be a quiet presence in times of grief. Not to fix, not to advise, not to cheer up, but to simply sit in the darkness with someone. To hold their pain without trying to take it away. To be a witness to their sorrow. When you can be fully present for both the wedding and the funeral, the celebration and the crisis, you prove that your connection is not conditional. You are there for the whole human experience, the beautiful and the brutal. And in that shared journey through life's peaks and valleys, a connection deepens into a bond that feels like home. Every long-term relationship will face conflict. There will be misunderstandings, hurt feelings, and moments of disconnection. A bond's strength is not measured by the absence of these ruptures, but by the willingness and ability to repair them. The art of repair is perhaps the most advanced social skill of all. It requires humility, courage, and a deep commitment to the relationship over the need to be right. Repair means being the first to apologize, even if you were only 10% wrong. It means listening to the other person's hurt without defending yourself. It means taking responsibility for your impact, regardless of your intention. It means saying, "I'm sorry. I see how I hurt you. Your feelings make sense. What can I do to make this right?" And repair also means learning to forgive, to let go of resentment, to release the need for punishment, and to choose the relationship over the grievance. It's understanding that both of you are imperfect, and that a lasting bond is not a record of wrongs, but a story of grace. When two people become skilled at the dance of rupture and repair, they build a resilient connection that doesn't just survive conflict, but is actually strengthened by it. They learn that they can hurt each other and still find their way back, and that knowledge creates a foundation of security that is unshakable. Finally, lasting bonds are not static monuments. They are living, breathing organisms that must be allowed to grow and change. The person you love today will not be the same person in 10 years, and neither will you. A connection that endures is one that gives both people the space to evolve. It doesn't try to lock someone into an old version of themselves. It supports their growth, encourages their curiosity, and celebrates their transformation. It means loving who they are becoming, not just who they have been. This requires social flexibility and a release of control. You must be willing to renegotiate the terms of the relationship as you both change. You must keep learning each other, asking new questions, and listening to new answers. The conversations you had at 20 will be different from the ones you have at 50. The dreams you shared at the beginning may evolve into new ones. A lasting bond is flexible enough to hold all of these changes. It is a commitment not to a fixed person, but to a fellow traveler on the journey of life. By giving each other the freedom to grow, you ensure that you grow together, not apart. And in that shared evolution, You create a story that spans a lifetime, a connection that doesn't just last, but endures. Conclusion: walking forward with social intelligence. We have arrived at the end of our journey together, but in truth, it is only the beginning of yours. We began with a simple image, walking into a room full of strangers, a scenario that can either fill us with a sense of belonging or a feeling of profound invisibility. The difference, we discovered, is not in changing who you are, but in awakening a skill that has been dormant within you all along. The art of social intelligence. It is not a secret code reserved for the charismatic or the extroverted. It is a human language, available to anyone with the courage to slow down, the patience to listen, and the willingness to see the world through the hearts of others. Over the course of our time together, we have dismantled the myth that social skill is a fixed trait and rebuilt it as a practice, a muscle that grows stronger with every conscious interaction. You have learned that the most powerful person in the room is often not the loudest, but the most observant. You have discovered that true listening is a gift of presence, one that can heal wounds and build bridges without a single word of advice. We journeyed through the unspoken language of human behavior, learning to read between the lines where truth resides, not in polished words, but in the subtle shifts of energy, tone, and posture. We explored the immense power of a calm response over a triggered reaction, realizing that emotional control is not about suppression, but about feeling everything and choosing wisdom. You learned that boundaries are not walls that push people away, but the foundations of respect upon which all healthy connections are built. You found that saying no with grace is an act of self-love that ultimately strengthens your relationships, making your yes a genuine gift, not a resentful obligation. We walked through the fire of conflict and saw it not as a battle to be won, but as an opportunity to understand, to repair, and to deepen trust. You learned to lead softly, to influence not with force, but with the quiet magnetism of integrity and empathy. You learned to read the energy of a group, to adapt your style without losing your soul, and to build bonds that don't just last, but endure through the inevitable seasons of life. But if you take only one thing away from our time together, let it be this: social intelligence is not a performance. It is an act of presence. It is the radical decision to take the spotlight off of yourself, your anxieties, your next clever remark, your desire to be liked, and to shine it fully onto the person in front of you. It is to approach every interaction with a sense of curiosity rather than judgment. To ask yourself not, what can I get from this person, but who is this person in front of me? When you make this fundamental shift, the world transforms. Conversations cease to be tests you can pass or fail, and instead become opportunities to connect with another human soul. Awkward silences are no longer moments of panic, but sacred spaces for truth to emerge. Disagreements are no longer threats, but invitations to a deeper understanding. This path is not about perfection. It is about practice. There will be days when you react instead of respond. There will be moments when you listen only to reply. There will be times when you fail to notice the subtle cues someone is sending, or when you set a boundary clumsily, or when you let your ego drive a conflict. In these moments, do not despair. Do not see it as a failure. See it as information. See it as an opportunity to practice the most important social skill of all: self-compassion. The journey to understanding others begins with understanding yourself. The ability to forgive others' imperfections is born from the ability to forgive your own. Be gentle with yourself as you learn this new way of being. Each stumble is a lesson. Each mistake is a teacher. The goal is not to become a flawless communicator overnight. The goal is to become a more conscious one, day by day. As you walk forward from here, you carry with you a new set of tools. But more than that, you carry a new awareness. You will begin to see the world in higher definition. You will notice the flicker of sadness in a friend's eyes, even when they're smiling. You will hear the hesitation in a colleague's voice that signals a deeper concern. You will feel the tension in a room and understand its source. This awareness is your power. It is not a power to manipulate or control. It is the power to serve, to heal, and to connect. It is the power to be the person who makes others feel seen, heard, and safe. In a world that is growing louder, faster, and more disconnected, this is not a soft skill. It is a superpower. Your calm presence will become a refuge for the anxious. Your deep listening will be a balm for the lonely. Your ability to navigate conflict with grace will make you a peacemaker in your family, your workplace, and your community. So, let's return to that room. Picture yourself there one more time. You walk through the door. You still don't know anyone, but something is different. There is no frantic search for a place to fit in. There is no desperate need to be noticed. Instead, there is a quiet confidence. You stand still for a moment, and you just watch. You observe the flow of the room. You feel its energy. You notice the small groups, the person standing alone, the genuine laughter, the forced smiles. You are not anxious. You are interested. You are not performing. You are present. And when you decide to approach someone, you do so not with a script, but with genuine curiosity. You ask a question that opens a door. You listen to the answer with your whole being. You make someone feel, perhaps for the first time all day, that they truly matter. You are no longer on the outside looking in. You are a center of gravity, a point of connection, a force for good. You have mastered the hidden language. You have learned the art of reading and responding to people. The manual is now in your hands. The path is now clear. Walk forward and connect.